watched Nintendo, man, my thumbs were always sore. We stayed up past midnight, beating every score. Now I'm almost 21, playing evermore.
Welcome back, Beavemanites and Docutrons. It is I, the Beaveman, and with me, as always,
the Doc again.
The Doc again. Some would say, I would say that he's like my bitch sidekick. What do you think, Doc?
I would disagree with both bitch and sidekick.
Okay, I would say that you're like I'm Batman and you're my dog. You're not going. You can't be Robin. Sorry, you just can't. Oh, I'm a little chilly. I'm sitting.
Yeah, I can't be Robin. I'm not gay.
Robin is, first of all, I hate to do it when I say that. When I hate, you know what I hate? I told you before, I hate when people say, well, I can't be this because I have this. Or, I have gay friends. So I'm not going to say that. But he is very popular in that community, but he is not gay. Everybody know if you're a comic book nerd or if you love comic books like I do, specifically Batman, Nightwing, Robin, you would know that Dick Grayson is not gay. He's a big-time player. And actually, I hate to see... Lots of people think that... And this is not a comic book episode. We just did one of those. This isn't a comic book episode. It's just Doc and I chatting. You probably think Batman is my favorite comic book hero, I assume.
Yeah, isn't it?
He is not. He's not. It's actually Nightwing. Nightwing is actually my favorite. And I love Batman.
Which is Robin all grown up?
Yeah, it's Robin all grown up. I love Batman. He's awesome, but Nightwing is by far my favorite because, and even when there's been times when Dick has to be Batman for various reasons, whether it was if Batman was broken or if the time when Darkseid had him, I don't know if it's pronounced Darkseid or Darkseid, my apologies, and Dick had to be Batman. When he's Batman, he's my favorite Batman.
Well, I saw Batman 2000, and I really liked it. I wish they would continue with that.
Was it an animated series?
Yeah. Basically, Bruce Wayne was an old man. He walked with a cane. He was all battered up, and he was basically the brains behind the operation, and he caught some college student trying to break into his house or something like that. He recruited him into being the new Batman.
Oh, are you talking about Batman Beyond?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm a big fan of Batman Beyond. Oh yeah, big fan. I like that. I think it ran for 2 or 3 seasons, and I have that on the. I can watch that on the DC Universe app. It kind of ended abruptly. That's one of those things that's interesting, is because that was actually, I believe, that it was an animated series before it became a comic book. So it's the reverse, kind of like Harley Quinn. Harley Quinn was a character in Batman, I believe, the animated series, before she became a comic book character. She got introduced in a television show, and now she's one of the most popular. The coolest thing about that
is that it gives Batman the sort of continuity like Dread Pirate Roberts. You know what I mean?
Yeah, where there can always be a Batman. Yeah, and then later on, it's interesting how they flip around and they do these different scenarios, because some of those comics are written into, they're written with a plan or whatever. For example, the later Robin is Damian, who's Batman's son, and much later on in the future, we see comics as him as Batman. And later on, of course, we still see Bruce as an old man. So they have all these different storylines, and of course, they can say it's a different storyline because of writers, or they can say it's a different storyline because of multiverses. So yeah, I like it where they can just keep going. Comics are one of those nice things. We don't have to worry about an actor growing old. Like, we don't have to worry about the fact that we don't get Hugh Jackman as a Wolverine anymore because he's too old, although he could play it if he wanted to. But it's one of those things where we don't. That's the beauty of the animation in the comics, in my opinion.
Yeah, Hugh Jackman's too old, but somehow he seems more muscular and more powerful every time you see him on TV.
Yeah, he looks great. I think the one time I heard that he had said they had asked him about playing Wolverine, and this was even before the last 2 times he played Wolverine. He said, "Yeah, I can't do it anymore. I'm not sure I'm going to do it again, or he wasn't planning on doing it again." And they asked him why, and he said something like, "There's only so many egg white and spinach omelets you can eat." Because he had to get ripped. He had to, and it would suck having to have that, a very specific diet all the time. I do like Hugh Jackman though. He's a very tall Wolverine, but he's a very great Wolverine. And now it's kind of one of those things where he's always going to be Wolverine for me, no matter who plays Wolverine.
I was about to say something similar. So yeah.
Yeah, he's always going to be Wolverine. It's kind of like, to me, Christopher Reeves is always Superman.
Exactly.
I love him I liked Henry Cavill. I liked him a lot, but he's still not, to me, Christopher Reeves is Superman. Even over George Reeves, and I grew up watching the TV shows in black and white.
I don't know if you've watched Legends of Tomorrow, DC's Legends of Tomorrow. But
I have not. I've watched the only part of the guy who played the first reboot of Superman. I know he plays Adam? Is that what he plays?
Yeah. That makes that whole thing really confusing for me, because I thought he made a really good Superman.
I thought he was a good rendition of Christopher Reeves. That movie was almost a complete copycat of the first movie. But I liked Henry Cavill as Superman more than I liked that guy. I thought he did a decent job, but it just didn't click. I don't think it clicked with the audiences. But again,
the last appearance of Superman in the Justice League movie was really dumb, because he wouldn't shave his mustache off, so they used CGI to take it out. It makes his face look really goofy.
It's so silly. I did like it when he had which was it? Was it the first one or the second one? It was obviously the first one, where he had kind of the lumberjack facial hair, kind of like. Pretty good. He looked good. Like, I actually like that Superman. I like that look. That's the look he should have kept. Or whatever. No, he looks ridiculous with a mustache. He probably should have just shaved it off. But and we talked about that on our last podcast, about how much they have to spend on just CGI. That's a crazy amount of money to have to do that. The arrogance of that guy. What the hell? Anyway, he's not going to be Superman
probably
anymore.
Because he had limited appearance in the movie, and he didn't want to, for the amount of money that they were offering him, he didn't want to shave off his mustache, because his character in another show he was working on at the same time.
Was that Mission Impossible?
What was that? What it was?
I don't know. I think that he had a mustache in Mission Impossible, so maybe he was doing that around the same time frame. But again, a mustache, that's an easy makeup fix. I mean, God, put a mustache on him. That's easy. You don't have to worry about growing it back in. That's whatever. Anyway, what the hell were we talking about? Oh, I don't know. How did we get on comics? What the frick? Oh, I talked about my favorite. You said Robin was gay. Robin is not gay. And even if he was, it would be fine. But if you read the comics, you would know that Dick Grayson is not gay. That guy has banged more chicks in the comics than probably any other superhero or detective.
I was kind of making a reference to Deadpool's comment about, I'm pretty sure that Robin loves Superman in that way too, or Batman. Sorry.
Yeah, I don't think so. But yeah, if you're a big fan of Nightwing like I am, there's no question in your mind that he is definitely not gay. Anyway, so that's just a segue into who my favorite superhero is. It's actually Nightwing. Batman is second. I don't know who's third. Probably Wolverine or Spider-Man. I don't know. I like the Hulk though too. So Superman, you are way down the list there, buddy. You suck ass.
Originally he was my favorite, but it's just story-wise, it's hard to make a movie that challenges, or hard to come up with a bad guy that properly challenges Superman.
Well, and the other thing is he has limitations. Once you start opening up all the different universes, or even if different galaxies, if you take him away from our sun, he's not Superman. So they kind of limited him in that respect.
They explore that in the Supergirl, to where they maintain the power, but it fades rather quickly. And the longer you've been exposed to the yellow sun, the longer it takes for that power to fade. But it will fade.
Right. Yeah. So I know that they did some animated series. I don't know if it was the Justice League or something else where he was just a regular dude because it was in a different galaxy. But anyway, but in that respect, I think Captain Marvel is probably better, or Shazam. I always liked Shazam. It was pretty cool. He just doesn't have all the stuff that Superman has. They've got a lot of comparative stuff, just not the same. He doesn't have X-ray vision. He doesn't have the laser eyes or the frozen breath, but he's pretty badass.
I just think that the whole Captain Marvel thing, it lacks originality in it. It's like, yeah, it's entertaining movie, but take it or leave it.
Yeah. Well, we're talking about two different Captain. I was talking about the other Captain Marvel. I can't call him Shazam. It's really hard to call him Shazam. Anyway.
Yeah. Well, growing up, that's the name I knew him best by.
Yeah.
I always used to call him Shazam.
That's how we knew him. But whatever. Anyway, you can listen to the last podcast about that one. Here's the couple questions that Doc and I thought we could kind of talk a little bit about. On Facebook, you know how they decide what your interests are from their brilliant AI that they have. So they can target things like, advertisements or whatever for you, or interesting videos. Somebody and actually I think it was one of our friends, put a video clip on his that showed, did you see that one with the tiny drone? Where the drone...
Tiny drone.
Yeah, there was guy was talking and he had this little drone, and then they showed how well the little drone flew, basically. And then the little drone flew, and it had a mock-up of a human.
Oh, the facial recognition software that guided the drone. The drone carried a small explosive, and then it would go and basically assassinate a person.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah, I remember that.
So I was reading, actually, a couple things. Popular Science. Remember how good... That was a pretty decent magazine when we were growing up. Not saying it's a bad magazine now. I have a subscription to it that my sister-in-law got me, so I think I get like 6 issues of it or whatever. Read through 2 of them. I was pretty disappointed. There was only like maybe 4 actual articles in it. The rest seemed to be a lot of advertisements passed off as science.
Yeah, Playboy suffered the same fate. You get a few pictures, and the rest was all advertisement.
Yeah, I wasn't talking about Playboy. Anyway, I wanted it to read science articles, man, something that would be interesting. So, but thankfully, the magazine that I wanted was Scientific American, and that has basically all articles in it. There's not very much advertisement in it. And the article that I was reading and that I wanted to talk to you about was basically along the same lines of that. It's called Don't Let Bots Pull the Trigger. Weapons that kill enemies on their own threaten civilians and soldiers alike. I can see advantage and disadvantage to increasing the mechanization or the robot capabilities of the military as opposed to not. Do you have any? Well, I guess let's do the fours. Let's do the fours and let's do the fours and against. If we had, let's just use the drones.
Those
first.
Little drones are the world's first real-life Terminators.
Explain the Terminator. If you have not listened
you've
to...
seen the movie The Terminator,
if you
right?
haven't seen the movie The Terminator is about the post-apocalypse, and really, basically what happens was we made a computer, it became self-aware, and I'm sure there's a term for that, became self-aware, decided that humans really needed to be ruled for the greater good of, I guess, the planet. And so thus started the wars between the robots and the humans. And the Terminator, the first one, was the mighty Arnold Schwarzenegger when he was quite large, came back in time to kill Sarah Connor, who was the mother of John Connor, who was the biggest pain in the ass of the Terminators. So yeah, I agree with you. That is this not the beginning of the Terminator era?
Yeah, the artificial intelligence that guides the Terminators is only a matter of time at the way we're making advancements in CPU technology. So yeah. So
I guess the question would be though is if you what's the benefit of robotizing or mechanizing the military in that regard, and having us, I don't know, if you had like a bunch of them and you just unleashed them, do you have to have single operators working on it, or would you just be sending them out to obliterate an entire enemy force, irrespective of whether they're non-combatants or not?
Well, the biggest advantage of drones is being able to get things done without risking human life, at least human life on our side of the war or the conflict effort.
Well, if they're talking about releasing drones on a large scale, would they have to make them specific for the person that they're getting to, or are they just sending them out large scale to kill everything in their wake? That's my concern. I mean, I can see the reasons.
It could be done either way, honestly.
But then you would have to have facial recognition of every enemy, or come up with some way of recognizing that enemy.
Of identifying them,
exactly.
right.
So if you're in a town that's populated by the bad guys, as we determine that they're bad guys, and good people, how do the drones determine who it's supposed to go and attack? Unless you had...
if I had say a couple thousand of these drones, and it were a surprise attack, meaning that the enemy didn't know it was coming, and I wanted to deal with like Al Qaeda or ISIS or whatever terrorist group that they're talking about, they have a picture of whoever is in charge, and they send them out, take them out. Problem solved, right? Or if they have a stronghold, they could use coordinates and just section off an area and send in a couple hundred of these drones, and they kill everything that moves in that area.
Would you not consider that, though? I would consider that a war crime. Just as much as if there's going to be people there too. Let's say, there's family there, there's children there, and it just goes in and kills everybody. Kind of like these.
They probably wouldn't use it in those circumstances, but let's say that there's a tunnel system or a building. I mean, it's the same way they would launch a missile and blow up a building. If they don't want to destroy the building, they can send these drones in and take the people out instead.
Well, let's talk about
the building intact.
Well, let's talk about facial recognition. How good is the AI to distinguish between one person or another if you have similar...
It is really good. I mean, really good.
But if they're basing it off of just, say, a picture?
Well, you'd need more than one picture and from more than one angle, but yeah, it'll do it.
And what about the ability that we have to, say, full AI? For example, if I took your picture and I had it as a printed picture, they've been able to show that for, like opening up your phone, people can do that with a picture of you. Could you not do the same thing if you knew a drone strike was coming in? Okay, well, I'm just going to put a picture of me up on the wall and I'm going to go hide in a closet.
Well, they would use germanium sensor, which would detect the infrared. So you would know if the computer would know the difference between a picture and a person based on the temperature in contrast with the environment around it.
Possibly. Yeah, possibly. So for it, I guess I would say that I would be for it because I don't want our soldiers in danger. Well, I guess that would be my for it.
It's really only a practical tool for specific, taking one target and sorting it out from many. If you don't want to just have mass casualties as a result, it's a good way. It's an assassination tool.
But don't you think that's
the best way?
But don't you think that's how everything begins, though? Everything begins small and then becomes big. If it's effective, for example, if we said, I want to take this person out.
Exists, it wouldn't take a very big EM pulse to knock one of those little drones out.
If you know they're coming.
if you know they exist, you could have tools that you could have tools set up that would defend against them. So they probably wouldn't use it in large scale. It'd be too expensive.
Well, I think that there's a lot of things that we can look at and say, is that more expensive than some of the other stuff that we spend our money in defense? For example, if we can launch drones and not pay for larger scale weapons, not pay for the vehicles, not pay for an assault, not pay for, example, a lot of soldiers, and we can just have them somewhere sitting remotely controlling the drones, is it that expensive large scale? I think that my concern is if it starts off small like that, if we said, okay, here I've got this drone and I can use this as a surgical strike on one particular person. Here's the information. This is what they look like, and I can send this drone to do it. This tiny drone that fits on the palm of my hand. That's great.
You really think, like those Tomahawk missiles? You really think they cost $1 million a piece to make? I don't think so. The cost of the weapons in our military are defined by the amount of money that the government wants to hide to use for undisclosed black ops, and it's all one big book doctoring scenario.
Well, I don't know, because that's a yes and no.
Shit.
That's a yes and no because we don't make those. You have to remember that we contract to have that stuff made. So does it cost $1 million? We probably do pay $1 million for it. Did it cost the people that we buy it from to make it $1 million? Absolutely not. That's how they get profit. I mean, we don't. It would be one thing if it said, okay, we make the Tomahawk missiles. The U.S. Air Force makes our Tomahawks, and it costs $1 million to make one, and we know it doesn't cost $1 million to make one, so that's how they can funnel funds and hide funds. But when we're talking about the fact that we contract it out,
I contract with you to make a Tomahawk missile, then you take that money and you give a portion of it back to me, and as long as you keep doing that, I will keep contracting with you to make more Tomahawk missiles. And so let's say you keep half of that, so that gives me $500,000 to work with to spend on areas that I don't have to disclose. I mean, I take that back. Technically, I would have to disclose it, but I might not if I were a criminal because I would spend it on other things. So I'm not saying that all politicians are criminals, although I think what they do
is criminal.
I think
what they do
very
is criminal,
in my opinion. But yeah, I mean that's how it works. One hand washes the other.
Right.
The money goes out, and somehow it makes its way back, and then they use that to spend on their own agendas that the voters don't necessarily know about.
Well, that's what I'm saying is you can say that the Tomahawk we're just generically using that. Say the Tomahawk costs $1 million to make. We contract that out to somebody who's given us a quote and says it's going to cost you $1 million to make this. Okay, so we give them $1 million, and they might say, we know it doesn't cost $1 million. You're going to give us $1 million, and I'm going to give you $50,000 back to report that it cost us $1 million to make it, or
a kickback,
$500,000 back, yeah, or $500,000, or I'm going to give you $500,000, and you can do it whatever you want, but I want that contract. So yeah, it'd be easy to hide money that way. And do I think that happens? Yeah, obviously, of course it does. You see it all the time. Anyway, there's obviously smarter, more evil people out there that are making money, and we're not. But so the only four I can see for that is it's not endangering. There's less of a danger to human life on our side, but I have way more against that sort of use of technology than I have on the fours column. Against, number one, we grew up watching the Terminator. So the people who are making or engineering this technology, that movie's been out since then, or before that. And before it was what, Westworld, where the robot went kind of crazy with what was the guy? Yul Brynner starred in that movie. That came out
Oh
like
yeah, that
like
was
in the
back in the
60s.
'70s.
Or 60s or 70s, yeah, something like that. And so the robot went crazy there too, right? So that's always been, it's like there's always been this fear in the back of our heads from sci-fi writers or whatever that the robots would take over and we'd have to fight against them. So why do we, so it's not a new concept, so why do we keep making shit that seems like it's pushing us farther and farther towards that happening?
The interesting that you brought up Westworld, because they recently had a remake of it, and it had Anthony Hopkins and well a few others, but it was really good.
Yeah, I heard that. Was it, so it was a TV series, right?
It was like HBO or Cinemax or
Of
something
course,
like
yeah.
that.
All stuff
Showtime.
all stuff I
I
don't
can't
get.
remember.
I'll have to check that out. I heard it. Yeah, I heard it was pretty good. But
Yeah, I enjoyed it a lot.
but so that's my thing though, right? If all that stuff has been out forever and that's always been a fear of ours, why do we keep making shit that seems to edge us closer and closer to it?
Because on some level we believe we can keep it under control.
Yeah.
I mean, look at the Matrix, the whole concept behind that. The machines eventually rebelled, and it turned into a war that ended everything as we know it.
Did you see the Animatrix?
Yeah, some of those are pretty cool
That
too.
was pretty cool. Yeah, so I have way more against. So against, I'm afraid that we're going to have too much AI. It's going to take over. We're going to have to fight robots. I know it's a stupid concept, but that's what I feel in my head. And will it happen in my lifetime?
Well,
I seriously doubt
I'm
it.
not worried about the AI taking over. I'm more worried about people relying on the AI in circumstances that, well, the AI just isn't needed, or they shouldn't be relying on it. You know, like cars nowadays, they have sensors built into it to where, like in the commercial, they show, oh, I'm driving around, I've got my wife and my kids in the back seat, and and I'm busy turning around and talking with people and not paying attention to the road. And so I need the car to watch the road for me and hit the brake if something gets in the way.
Yeah, maybe
That's
pay
crap.
attention instead. Yeah,
That's
maybe pay
total
attention
crap.
instead. That seems like a better
Right.
idea.
And then maybe make a car that doesn't cost so damn much.
Well, that again goes back to that. We know cars don't cost that much. I have a theory on that, but I'm not going to say it because I don't want to piss off a bunch of people who work for unions. Anyway, you can read between the lines on that one. No, the other thing was that I was confused about is instead of worrying about so much about the robots taking over and the use of technology, I almost feel like they've already taken over. Not so much in these walking robots that we see, but just by the mere fact that I can turn on my phone and I can get flooded on Facebook or whatever about stuff that I might have some interest in because of stuff I've looked at before.
Well, that's just a straight up invasion of privacy. I mean, when you post things, when you hit like on Facebook, you're giving up some of your privacy, because it's all information, and information is for sale. That's how the people on the internet make money, is by trading information. So Facebook keeps a profile based on your habits and your likes, and they sell it to other companies in order to try and sell you something, or to make you want to buy something. Because, well, I know that this guy likes chocolate whatever. So you start, you do a search on chocolate because you're looking to get your fix. And then suddenly you go onto Facebook and you start seeing all kinds of chocolate this and chocolate that, and
Right, exactly. So if I look up stuff like I'll look up stuff on like Western martial arts or on martial arts, and I always get flooded about stuff for training equipment or training gear for boxing and for kickboxing and for karate. It's always on there. So that again goes back to my thought process that I'm worried about something, or I'm not really worried. Let me clarify that. It's in the back of my head, but does it affect my life in any way that I'm actually physically worried about the robots taking over? No, but I also know that the fears that people have are already realized. We're already getting focused, targeted marketing. People are already so heavily rely on their smartphones for everything that it's already here. It's already here. You're already doing that. Your information's already out there. One of the funniest things I see on Facebook, and it happens all the time, is people are always posting on, oh, well, as of tomorrow at midnight, if you don't tell Facebook that they can't use your information, then they'll be able to use your information and your images. And you ever see those? That happens all the time.
Yeah,
your friends always put that.
just,
and I always comment.
Just so everybody knows, that means absolutely.
I know. I always comment to my friends. I'm like, you already agreed to let them use your stuff because you use Facebook, ding dong. You're believing in some false thing that some other idiot posted. I'm like, they have every right to use your stuff. You put it on there. What do you think? What do you think that means? You can't tell. Yeah.
Well, they do have a new movement which is called the right to be forgotten, and if they have their way, and it's looking likely that they are making progress. If they have their way, basically, if you delete your Facebook account, that revokes their right to use anything regarding you or your behaviors. So literally, if you delete your Facebook account, they have to delete your information. If they have their way, that's the way it'll be, which I think is the right way to go. If I'm going to use Facebook, yeah, I'm exposing myself to a certain amount of risk, but I should be able to stop using Facebook and withdraw my participation at any time.
I agree with you. I think that's completely reasonable. But the majority, I think a lot of people, if they pass that, and let's say they pass that for every application out there. In other words, that's how it is. People are still going to use it. They're still going to reopen it. They're still going to redo that. I'm like, yeah, you can do all that other stuff. I'm like, I guess just don't post. Just don't put anything that you don't want to know.
They passed a law. They passed a law recently in Europe that makes it to where, like, Facebook would be held responsible for copyright violations and things like that. Let's say I'm a Facebook user and I log into Facebook and I post a Superman signal or a bat signal on my Facebook account, and suddenly I've just infringed on DC's rights to Batman logos. So Facebook would have to pay DC for my use of the bat signal on my Facebook page. It's getting really messy, and there's all kinds of lawsuits and things are going crazy over it right now. But the fact that the law actually succeeded best means that it could change everything in terms of social media in the future. So we'll wait and see how that turns out.
Right. Well, I think there's no good answer. I just, at this point in my life, I feel like if you don't want something out there, don't put it out there. That's kind of how I feel about it.
Don't start nothing, won't be nothing.
Right, exactly. So, I mean, I shouldn't post a picture of my penis on Facebook and then get mad when I get in trouble for posting a picture of my penis on Facebook, which incidentally I've never done, but don't plan on doing it. But
but if I did do that, it would be fucking awesome.
Okay.
Just saying.
You're saying your penis, your own personal penis that you haven't seen for years is awesome.
Yeah.
You're like, yeah, I haven't seen it. I don't know what it looks like anymore. No, but that also kind of led me into my other question I had about you, or I had to discuss with you, is one of my favorite topics is conspiracies. I read a really good article on why we believe in why we believe conspiracy theories. And it was kind of cool. It was actually, because remember I had talked about it and I said, what is there something in my own personal wiring in Americans or in me personally that makes me think that conspiracies are feasible? For example, the good example that they gave is, how everybody a lot of people can poo-poo conspiracies, and they're like, the world's, not everybody's out to get us. And one of the most outlandish conspiracies that they had proposed most recently was that the Russians interfered in the election. and everybody thought that was
But they
completely,
did.
and everybody thought it was a completely ridiculous conspiracy theory.
Well, what's ridiculous about it isn't the fact that the Russians interfered with our elections. I think that is unquestionable at this point. They did.
Right, they
But
did.
there are others interfering with it much, much more than the Russians ever dreamed of.
But the point is that that was a conspiracy theory that many in the general population shot down and would label people who believed in that conspiracy theory
Crazy.
as crazy. But then it turns around and it was accurate. That we have basically definitive proof that indeed they did try to affect the election.
Well, the problem is with the media trying to over sensationalize something, and it gives people the perspective that might cause them to overreact or make the situation, making a mountain out of a molehill. You know what I mean? Did the Russians interfere? Yes. Did they interfere significantly that succeeded in actually changing who the president was? I don't think so. I don't think they had that kind of pull. Actually, I think Mexico has more pull on who our president is than Russia would ever dream of being.
But we also don't know.
Well, I mean,
don't know how
why
much.
do you think there are so many illegal immigrants here?
Because there's work here.
Well, not so much.
What do you mean not so much? There's a shitload of work here that we don't want to do that they do.
If those jobs paid properly, then people would want to do them.
But they're not going to pay properly. Just like Amazon. How much does Amazon pay its workers? Not very much. But they got a shitload of people working for them, and they make a shitload of money, and then they still get tax breaks. They make so much money, but they don't pay their workers well, and they work them to death. Look at Walmart. Walmart makes a shitload of money. They don't even give they cut their hours so that they don't have to give them insurance benefits. Oh yeah, you can work for us at Walmart, but you can only work for 20 hours, or you can only work for 16 hours.
29 and a half hours. At 30 hours, it becomes full time.
Yeah, or whatever. I mean, it's all about, again, so that even goes into another conspiracy, right? Where is it so outlined? And this is why I think that some of it should not be considered, it's not a conspiracy theory. It's, to me, some of it's common sense. When they think that, some people think that it's, oh, you're just a conspiracy theorist because you think that that there's large organizations that actually run the whole world. I'm like, I don't think that's a conspiracy theory. I think that's reality.
That's just the way it is.
I'm like, that's just the way it is. I'm like, there's powerful people, there's powerful families that have lots of money and lots of influence in multiple countries and have for years. And it's passed down from generation to generation. How can you say something like, okay, so the Queen technically isn't in power, right? But how can you say that family doesn't have influence on the entire world? Just as an example. Not saying it's an evil influence, but just saying in general, there's kind of a little bit of your proof. How can you say even the Kennedy family doesn't?
Well, the Queen isn't without power. She's like the chairman of Parliament, so she does get a vote, and her vote does count more than most. But yeah, in local terms, powerful people, Bill Gates, money is influence, money is power.
Right. We have our own set of what we would consider not royalty, but powerful people in the United States. And to say that somebody like Bill Gates doesn't affect or influence things that happen in the rest of the world, or maybe even have a hand in things that happen in the rest of the world, it's probably a pretty ridiculous notion. And that's why I come back to when I talk about the Queen. Do you think the Queen's influence is only in England or Great Britain? Of course not. I'm not saying that she's like a mover and shaker, but in general, decisions she makes or interests that she has in other areas or that her family have in other areas do not just extend to the country that she currently resides in or the unity of Great Britain.
I think if the Queen wanted to be a mover and a shaker, if she wanted to make life rough for somebody, she could do it.
Oh, I'm sure. And that's why I think that's not a conspiracy theory. A conspiracy theory is something like, Oh, and they even talk about in this article is that we never landed on the moon. And that was all done in a movie
Now
on a movie set.
that's crazy right there.
And you know, when people actually say that, and I laugh about that, how they actually think, I'm like, do you know that our movie making capability wasn't good enough to do that? I'm like, if you believe nothing else, realize that we couldn't make movies that good then.
Well, what about these flat Earth people? They're taking a cruise to Antarctica to prove to reach the edge of the world.
Right.
They believe that they're going to be able to look out over the edge and see infinity or some shit. Who knows? But that's crazy too.
Oh, it blows your mind, because if you think that when you step outside, so I'm in the desert right now, right? I can see a long ways. I can see for miles in the desert. If I'm a flat earther, my idea is, well, if I look out, it's flat when I look over miles. It's just flat. Is that a car or whatever? Cops.
Yeah,
cops.
siren.
Small town cops.
They're coming
Bad
to
boys.
get you.
Bad boys. What you gonna do? What you gonna do? Anyway, so that's one of the crackpot things that they say. So
Well, I can prove the flat earthers wrong.
Well, anybody can prove the flat earther's wrong. It's very simple. There's a reason why it looks
And I
flat
don't
to
need
you,
the whole
stupid.
world to do it.
All right, go ahead.
Go out on the ocean. Take two boats, and you drive one in one direction and one in the other. The water is curved, because when you get more than about somewhere between 5 and 20 miles apart, even with a very powerful magnifying glass or telescope, you're not going to be able to see anymore. I mean, it's the same thing with radio signals. You need something in orbit in order to get around the curvature of the Earth.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it's a simple experiment, just with two boats and a pair of binoculars.
I can do it less
20
expensively.
20 miles
than that.
is the absolute limit.
I can do it even less expensively than that.
You would just turn on your computer and look on the internet, see all
Go
the
up
proof.
go up in a tall building and see the curvature of the Earth. The reason why the Earth doesn't curve when we look at it from our perspective is because we're not 200 feet tall. It's a matter of proportion. Of course, everything we see appears flat to us because we're tiny in comparison to the surface area of the Earth.
Perspectives.
It's all perspective. But no, it all goes back to that's completely ridiculous. But again, the moon landing. Why do they think that the moon landing is fake? We had to beat the Russians there, so instead of actually beating them by making it there, we made our own production. How that to me is completely absurd.
Well, they like to say, well, why didn't if we went to the moon, how come nobody goes there anymore? Because why would they?
Yeah, because it's not made out of cheese. There's no cheese.
Nothing there to make it financially worth going back. We've learned everything we need to know. So, and they are going back, but
yeah, there is plans to. They have made some plans. I just heard that recently.
I think they're pushing for it to be done privately, commercially, instead of government funded. So,
well, you got a bunch of people working on that. The guy Elon Musk is working on it. He's got SpaceX, Virgin has got
Virgin Galactic. Yeah,
they've got that. Somebody else. There's a couple other ones doing it, but they're talking like the short jaunts, or even just to get into the upper atmosphere and then come back or whatever. But yeah,
which I think is great, because when the day comes when they say real estate's the one thing they're not making any more of. Well, that's about to change.
Well,
Pretty
I
soon
would
you'll
like
be able to buy real estate on the moon.
Well, I would like to. I would like to make it out of the Earth's atmosphere once in my life, but I'm pretty sure that's not going to happen, because in the time frame that they do it, it's still going to be super expensive. By the time, I don't think it's ever going to be inexpensive by the time I'm, I don't know, 80, if I'm lucky. We'll
Yeah,
see.
probably not in our lifetime or
Probably
the lifetime of anybody still alive today. So, but it will eventually happen, assuming that we don't destroy ourselves in the process.
Right. And if you're talking about real estate, I think that the conditions of the other planets, there's actually more likelihood of not actually occupying planets, but actually occupying moons of planets. Because there are some, I don't remember which planet, but they've got some pretty favorable conditions on some of the moons.
Well, the atmosphere around Venus is thick enough to where you could build a ship that would literally float. Just like a boat on the water. It would float in the atmosphere around Venus. And you could literally make a whole city that could float in Venus's atmosphere. And
then you could name it Cloud City.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It would be exactly that. And the power it would draw power from the geothermic heat going on below, and solar, and it would be perfectly renewable because there's nothing down there to destroy.
Well, unfortunately, if you decided that was, and of course, again, that's never going to happen in our lifetime, but unless they make engines that are much faster and more efficient, if you took a trip from the Earth, you're not coming back to the Earth to visit. You're going, and that's it.
Well, Venus is one of those that I think could be done long term and could come back. But we'll never see the surface of Venus. Not people anyway. But to float around in Venus's atmosphere for a while and escape the gravitational pull and come back, I think that's feasible.
So here's a couple of statements I wanted to get discussed a little bit. Here's false conspiracy theories can drive people to violence, as they did for the Pittsburgh synagogue shooter, and affect political activity. I think we're talking about some extremes of the spectrum. For example, when I talk about conspiracy theories, or I look at them as a form of entertainment for me personally, I don't think that necessarily makes... I think that there's extreme spectrums. I think that there's people who look at it and actually probably do panic about certain things, but that's not the norm.
They see conspiracy theories in everything.
Right.
That would be crazy.
Yeah, for something just like simple, for example, if you did a survey at work, and they talk about this in the article, saying that, I'm paraphrasing and I'm not getting it exactly right, but I'll use my own example with it also, is let's say that you were at work and your boss punished you for showing up late, but didn't punish your friend for showing up late. You might reason that your friend and your boss are against you in your own little conspiracy, as opposed to actually seeing yourself as, no, idiot, you showed up late.
Or your friend might be fucking your boss.
Yeah, or something. Yeah, you just automatically, your mind goes to not alternate realities, but alternate perspectives, as opposed to just realizing that, hey, I probably shouldn't have showed up late, and doesn't really matter.
There's also the perspective of, is it your first time being late, or have you been late before? And maybe they said something to you and not the other guy because that was their first time and it's not yours.
Right, exactly. So instead of looking at the reasons behind something that occurred, that it happens to you personally, you think that there's a conspiracy against you.
Right.
And I think that that's a common factor. I think that's something very common that happens to a lot of people. I think a lot of people are very good at placing the blame in other areas instead of looking at themselves, just like you said. Well,
or maybe your boss just doesn't like you.
That's always a possibility too. But does it mean they're out to get you? Probably not. Does it mean that they're
just because
plotting
I'm
against
paranoid
you?
doesn't mean that someone's not out to get me.
That's exactly correct. But again, if you're living your entire life like that, if you're establishing a pattern where you're like, oh, this happened to me because this fucker's against me. Well, maybe you're just a dick. Maybe you're just a dick and you fuck up all the time. Do you ever think about that? I think that's more realistic.
Yeah, I think about that every day, honestly.
You think about the fact that you're a dick? Or you're talking about me?
I know I'm not easy to get along with.
No, but as opposed to you kind of look at this pattern. You're like, am I setting some sort of pattern? And I think that people that maybe are very, very good at diverting and placing blame on others for their place in life should realize that they've set a pattern, and that it can't be that everybody's out to get you. Maybe the common factor in all of it is you.
Usually the simplest answer is the correct one.
And in that case, it's probably the more painful one because nobody wants to think that they should be blamed for their actions. But that's true.
It's like the flat earthers. What's
more
likely?
Here we go. There's the flat earthers.
That the whole world is wrong, or that you might be wrong.
Right, but then again, you could go to the conspiracy that, well, then clearly it's just a giant conspiracy and everybody's in on it. Well, how can everybody be in on a conspiracy? How is that even possible?
It goes back to the simplest answer is usually correct. What are the odds of being able to create a conspiracy that everyone participates in just for the sole benefit of fooling you?
Exactly. Yeah, and
or could it just be that they're all right and you're wrong?
Exactly. I mean, are you that... and maybe it comes down to a little bit of arrogance, too. It's like, why do you think that you're so special that we created this conspiracy just to fool you? How are you? But I don't put it past people. Again, though, I think that it would be interesting to talk with. Well, I'd have to have listeners. We'd have to have a lot of listeners in the first place. But it would be interesting to find people from other countries just to get their perspectives on if it seems like conspiracies are very prevalent. Now, there are some countries where it just doesn't seem off the wall. I mean, when we're talking about underdeveloped countries where, oh, the government's out to get us. Well, they probably fucking are. When you've got, shifts in governments all the time and police actions, that's probably pretty realistic. But here in the United States, I joke about the government and stuff like that, but do I think the government's out to get me? Not really. No, of course not. I'm not important. I'm not important at all. I'm not important in any way, shape, or form. There are almost 400 million of us. There's almost 400 million of us in America, right?
I'm special, and they are very interested in what's going on in my brain.
No, nobody gives a shit. That's why I wear a
tinfoil hat.
Well, you might have to, but the other thing is that sometimes there's things that you have to listen to, and that's why that whole, the thing with the Russian influence on the election and saying that was a conspiracy, but then it's proven that it's accurate. When do we know? I mean, how can we know if something's a conspiracy or not? We just don't. We don't. The most outlandish thing could be true, and we don't know.
Well, we have to. That's why in the movies, the conspiracy situations make really good suspense movies, because the character in the center of all of what's going on in the movie has got to be asking themselves that same thing, and at some point they have to make a commitment to either they believe the conspiracy or they're going to fight against it, one way or the other. And it makes all the difference in how their scenario plays out, and it makes some good stories.
Yeah, sure. I think so. But again, I think it goes back to the fact that here in America, we have nothing but time on our hands. We watch TV. We don't read as much. We fall into fantasies. We fall into all these things. We look forward. We very rarely focus on life around us outside of technology that we utilize. It's kind of like, instead of going outside and taking a walk and looking at the landscape, I might watch the Travel Channel. That's how ridiculous it is. Here's another statement that they make in this article. Anxious people are especially drawn to conspiratorial thinking, experiments show, and the mindset is also triggered by a loss of control. I think
What? Somebody's having a bad day or a bad go of things, and they start seeing conspiracies. It's like, this many bad things can't happen to one person. It must be something organized and planned against me.
Right. So you lose your job, and you lose your job. Bill collectors are calling. You can't get another job no matter how hard you try for a short period of time, and then
You got drunk, woke up the next morning not remembering half of the day before, and suddenly you think aliens are out to get you.
and your butt hurts.
And your butt hurts.
And your
That's
butt
right.
hurts. But exactly, and so you think things are out to get you, and then just the simplest thing happens, like maybe your friend takes you out to dinner to try to cheer you up, and they go and try to get a table, and they tell you it's a 2-hour wait, but the people in front of you just got there and they get seated. So now you
Reservations.
think that they're against you, and you start seeing things that clearly aren't there. Everybody's against you. This stuff is always against you. It's not anything that you've done. It's everything else. Everybody else is somehow against you in your own little place in the universe. So I could see that. I could see anxious people maybe falling into the... But again, I think they're looking at an extreme of a spectrum. I think conspiracy theories are interesting. I don't think anybody's out to get me. Do I think that there's some conspiracies that I'm kind of a big part of, that I believe in? I do think the government tracks us veterans. I do fully believe that. Even further evidence of that is, for example, in Michigan, they wanted us all to have the option of identifying ourselves as veterans on our driver's license, which I will not do.
Yeah, I'm not sure what I feel about that. I mean, I have veteran plates on my car.
Idiot!
Yeah, too late. But I've had those for, 20 years.
Yeah, so
And then some.
people might think that I'm paranoid for that thought process, but I also know for a fact that I don't necessarily want the government to know where I am as a veteran. That's just how I feel. I don't trust them in that regard. I don't think they need to know. But then I guess I should probably have that chip dug out of the back of my neck also, and I still haven't. So.
Yeah.
And I don't know why I've got...
You've seen that some people are actually having chips implanted in
their hands. Yeah, in their hands. What is that? Someplace in is that Minnesota or Wisconsin or something like that?
They're doing it in a few places now.
Yeah, well, they were doing it. They were doing it in some factory because you can get your snacks faster that way. You just scan your little hand, and you can get your your vending machine stuff faster that way. Or you can
I'll just pull a card out of my wallet.
And you can clock in. You can clock in that way. So
when I used to work at Target, and we had ID badges that had the chip built into the badge. So all I had to do was I'd wear it on a stretchy thing around my neck, and I'd extend it out, wave it in front of the clock, and bam, I'd be punched in.
Right.
And that's how I got in and out of the restricted areas, and yeah. But no way I'd let them put one in my hand. Screw that.
Oh, come on, you can get your snacks faster.
No, not that fast. I might put a chip in my dog.
My dog
might
has
make
a
it
chip.
easier to find.
A funny thing about that, so I've got a Ford Explorer, right? And if you hit the key, it will open the tailgate. Or if you put your hand underneath, there's a little button, and you hit that, and it will open the tailgate. Well, I kept having it. I'll walk by it to take the dog out, and sometimes I'll walk by it, and I don't even touch the key or anything, and the tailgate will open. And it's just been driving me batshit, and I can't figure out why. And I'm like, well, I don't want to take it to the Ford dealer because shit never happens when you say it's going to happen because it's just random. So
You should be able to disable that feature.
so get this right. Um, so I was talking to my wife while I was here in Arizona, and she's like, your stupid tailgate opened when I walked by it. I'm like, that. And she's like, I didn't have my key on me. I didn't have anything. I didn't have any of your stuff on me. I'm like, that's really bizarre. I said, it's strange because every time it's happened to me, and what she was doing was she was taking our dog out. And every time it's ever happened to me, I had my dog with me. And I was like, there's
So
no way.
you think there's some confusion between the chip in the dog and
Yeah.
the sensors on the car?
Yeah, I think so. Wouldn't that be crazy? Because my dog has a chip.
Dogs are out to take over the world. Look out.
Well, my dog has a chip. So I'm like, is it possible that it is reading my dog's chip as she walks by and opening the tailgate?
It's funny that we're talking about conspiracy theories and things like that because I recently started watching the X-Files again.
Oh, yeah. I bet that's good.
I've never watched it from beginning to end. I've just seen bits and pieces here and there.
Does it hold up to the test of time?
Yeah, it's still enjoyable. They still address things that that concern us today. Especially like there was one episode which kind of fits into what we're talking about, where they were talking about like using vaccinations as like a genetic tagging system,
okay.
So they could keep track of people. The aliens were working with our government in order to, tag the people, keep track of where they are and their genetic development, things like that.
Okay. Well, that's not so. I mean, obviously the vaccination part is kind of goofy. I don't know how they would. I mean, it's just an idea, but unless they had, what do you call it, nanobot technology, then.
Yeah, who knows? I mean, alien technology beyond the scope of our normal medical means of keeping track of it,
Right. Well, I think they could probably just scan the barcode I have on my arm. It'd probably be easier.
Yeah. I don't think I'll ever get that done.
No. So, but yeah, so when you're talking about the aliens, though, are these the ones that are coming from the hollow Earth, or actually ones from space?
I'm pretty sure it's the space ones.
You don't think it's the hollow Earth ones?
No.
Okay. Well, yeah, I was just laughing. I thought this article was really good, though. I thought it was fun because I didn't expect to kind of read that, but they took the science spin on it and just connected it with a little bit of anxiety. And I think that the country's pretty anxious right now in general. Lots of shootings.
I don't think that the world has ever been more tense than it is today. I mean, usually it's like a Cold War status with reality.
It's very odd because
usually you'd know where you're at. Your country would either be at war or it wouldn't. And since like World War II, everything is all questionable. Nobody knows what's really going on.
Right, and nobody knows who the bad guy is.
It's very difficult to tell. Yeah.
It's a lot like the comics right now, in some ways. That there's a fear of underground societies running everything. There's a fear of collusion between major powers that are actually running things and the people aren't. I was telling my wife the other day that this is the first time in, I don't know, let's see, I'm 46 now. This is the first time in probably 28 plus years that I have felt like just prejudice everywhere. This is the first time towards my ethnicity. I haven't felt this way since I was in high school. And I'm like, then that's bizarre to me. I even feel it here in the West. I'm out West, for God's sakes, surrounded by my people, and I feel it. Which is crazy to me. I thought that we have come so far, and now it feels like we're regressing. It's just insanity. So I don't even know what to think anymore. I think there needs to be a big change. But I don't think it's
Well,
I don't think it's going to be Bernie.
if
though.
if you do something, if somebody walks up and punches you in the nose, who happens to be a different ethnicity than you, doesn't necessarily mean they punch you in the nose because you're a different ethnicity. And if you're angry with them, doesn't mean that you're angry with them because of their ethnicity, whatever. What it means is you're angry because you got punched in the nose. And until you know why they punched you in the nose, you really can't jump to conclusions on the subject. So there's a lot of tension, and it's because of political differences. I think are playing a big part in that. And the political differences are stemming from the immigration problems that we have.
Or the perceived immigration problems that we have.
I think it's real.
That's an opinion, and that's why I'm saying the perceived, because we don't know. Statistically, we don't have one any worse than we've had.
Well, we know that there are more than 11 million illegal immigrants from Mexico alone. They know there are at least 11 million in the U.S. And there's only supposed to be, 600,000 Mexican non-U.S. citizens in the country at any given time?
Right,
So
but again,
there's a pretty big
statistically,
number difference.
statistically, it's not worse now than it was 4 years ago. That's what I'm saying. It's perception.
Well, it
So
becomes
again,
a
we
crisis
go back
because people have been avoiding the subject, and now it's becoming worse. You have to make it a priority issue if you're going to do anything about it, because people have been ignoring it or trying to just pass it along for the next guy to worry about.
But again, like I said, though, it's not going back to the rhetoric that is passed around now is not unifying the country. That's the problem. Regardless if there is an actual problem or a perceived problem, is irrelevant. What we're breeding now is we're breeding hatred as opposed to unifying the country. That's what they're doing. That's the problem. There may be an immigration problem that we need to solve. That's not the issue. The issue is going about it the wrong way. And that's what they're doing, is they're making everybody angry instead of unifying us.
But the anger is kind of hard to avoid. When people start seeing just how deep the rabbit hole goes on the subject, how could people not be mad? That's a lot of expense.
Yeah, but what we're doing that's the difference is what they're doing is this is like taunting children to fight. This is what we're doing. It's like having the circle of people with two people in the middle who are too scared to fight, but taunting them until they do fight. That's what we're doing. So instead of unifying the country and breaking up the fight, they're stimulating anger in the country on all sides. This country is more angry than it's been in my recollection as an adult and as a young person. It shouldn't be that way.
But some people would see it as avoiding the fight by sending the ones back home that's not the issue.
That's not the issue that I'm talking about. I'm talking about whether it's a problem or not. The people in power are not handling it in a way that decreases the anger that the country has. All they're doing is stimulating it. I'm not saying there is no problem. I'm not saying there is no problem.
It as a wedge issue in order to pander to their base.
That's what I'm saying.
Both sides are doing that.
That's what I'm saying.
Much.
I'm saying instead of identifying a problem, coming up a way with fixing the problem, and doing it in a way that is humane, unifies the country, and doesn't lead to anger, that's not what they're doing. What they're doing is just poking people with a stick on all sides of the issue. There are much larger issues to address, but what they've done is they said, let's pick an issue that we think we can get people riled up about in support of our base for election purposes only to push our own agendas. That's what they're doing. And people in this country are not realizing it, and they're just hopping on the bandwagon on whatever side that they're going to pick and going along with being an angry country instead of being a country that's a problem-solving country.
I'm kind of caught in the middle on a couple of issues in regards to the whole war between the Democrats and Republicans, for example, on those subjects. The Democrats want, open borders and things like that, which I don't think is right. But beyond that, they also want universal medical care, which I do think is right. Unfortunately, I don't think there's any way that we can have both. So in order to get the universal medical care, we're going to have to get the immigration issue under control. Otherwise, the system won't be viable, even on the short term, let alone the long term. And so I can kind of see where there's some hints of truth from both sides, but they're going to have to come somewhere in the middle in order to make either one of those happen.
But they're not. That's the point. Neither one of them is going to happen.
Too much bitterness in between.
Oh, because again, instead of it being a government by the people, for the people, it's for the people in power, pushing their own agendas and picking the fights that they want to pick that will get the rise that they want.
That's why we need term limits, and we need to get the money out of politics.
Yeah, exactly. Why should you serve a term and get paid your whole fucking life?
Exactly.
Why should you not be subjected to the same laws that I'm subjected to?
I think, and I came up with a really cool idea, at least I think it is.
It's probably not.
Probably never going to happen, but I think
politicians
should be required to take what I call a vow of mediocrity, which means that from the day they take office, they run for office, they get the office, they should have to sacrifice a portion of their belongings to where anything they own or ever will own cannot exceed that of the average American for the rest of their life. If they want career politicians, that should be the way it goes. That way, they can't possibly benefit. If they happen to make more money than the average American, guess what? It goes to the U.S. Treasury. And go from there.
I think that it's just a matter of, in my opinion, is that they should have term limits. They shouldn't be able to keep jockeying through from one political position to another. They shouldn't be jumping parties. And they definitely don't need to get benefits the rest of their lives. And they definitely don't need to, they need to follow the same laws that I follow. Period.
Right. Well, I don't think that companies should be treated like people. I think that the companies should not pay any tax at all. They're not people. They don't get a vote. But the money that people make from that company, let's say I own a company, the money that I put in my pocket as opposed to reinvesting in the company should get taxed equally as much as anybody else. So every dollar is equal. So flat tax.
Yeah.
I think that's the way it should be. But instead, you can avoid the tax brackets by investing in the stock market, which is crap, because the capital gains tax is only like 14 or 15% or some shit like that, and so you could make $1 billion and only pay 15%. To where if I make over $100,000, I'm going to pay 35 or 40% on that, which is crap.
Right.
Total utter crap.
Well, it makes the argument for why should I work then? Like why should I work? Maybe I should just go live off the government.
Right. Well, that's another problem all on its own. But I think it all starts. The root of all those problems starts with term limits and removing the money from politics, overturning Citizens United, to where the start putting limits on campaign contributions and things like that. Like in Canada, did you know that each politician is only allowed to spend a certain amount of money
On hookers?
on
I mean, it's legal, right?
advertising
Isn't that legal?
for their campaign?
Oh,
They're
yeah.
only
Well,
allowed-
yeah, it should
each
be.
one- Each
Sure.
politician is equal in the amount of money that they're allowed to spend,
I think it should be, yeah.
wherever they
Why
get
not?
that money from.
Yeah, I think it should be. But yeah, let me also say that, first of all, this is not a political show. I don't like being political. But, there's some things that...
Gotta come up eventually.
Yeah, I mean, you can kind of divert the conversation a little bit, but I think that one of the problems with politics in general is, for some reason, it seems like being a politician has become a part of the American dream, and not the American dream to serve the people, but an American dream to make a lot of money and to gain power.
Yeah.
And that's...
Yeah, the power thing, that's a problem.
It definitely is not. I don't feel like politicians are really out for the best interest. And that's a generalized statement, and I know it is, but it's a generalized statement because of what we've experienced throughout our life watching the politicians do what they do. I just feel like they're not looking out for the best interest of us. And I always used to think, well, I don't really care that much because it doesn't affect me in my day-to-day life. What affects me in my day-to-day life is the people that's around me, the people I work with, the people who are my family, and it doesn't affect that. But now there's so much dissension that it has come to a point now where it does affect my life, and I'm not a fan of it affecting my life.
Well, common people can't even agree on the definition of words anymore. I mean, they're constantly trying to change things to suit their own agendas, and the world literally, not
figuratively.
at the risk of using an old cliche, but the world is literally going to shit.
Well, I think it's figuratively going to shit.
No, literally.
I mean, literally would mean it's going to shit. There's shit everywhere, but okay, whatever.
Yeah, there is shit everywhere.
But it's figurative shit. It's not literal shit. Anyway. All right. Well, anyway, I think we, yeah. So that was my conversation. Not as much fun. Anyway.
I don't know. I liked it.
That was good. All right. So next week, I don't know what we're gonna talk about next week. Who knows? I've been not to bust on Popular Science magazine, but I was sad that it was not as much fun as it used to be. But do a lot of reading, and of course we get exposed to stuff, and we'll talk about that next time.
They have another magazine that's probably made by the same people called Popular Mechanics.
Oh yeah, yep. It probably is. I think it is probably made by the same folks. I would guess. I'd imagine. Seems like it.
It sounds like it.
Even the graphics are very similar. So, all right. So, you got anything else to add?
No, I'm having fun.
All right. Well, now that Doc is having fun, we'll wrap it up.
Aw.
No, that was the other two. That was the two things I wanted to talk about. Anything else you wanted? Was there anything else you want to talk about?
Yeah, I'll save it for next time.
All right, you save it for next time. All right, well then, in that case, Beavemanites and Docutrons, also known as Doctards.
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 You need to fix that. we got to come up with a better name for that.
What? It's Docutrons.
Docutrons is okay, but that other part.
It's just if you're a fan of Doc, clearly, never mind. So as always, though, people.
And you want people to listen to the show?
All right, people, get out there. Get out there and share these damn shows so that we get more listeners and we can spread the word. If you like the show, obviously we like you to listen to it. We've got followers. So share. People get other people to listen to it so that we can spread the word. People need to understand. They need to take a snapshot into the life of Beaveman and the Doc and start thinking like us.
What we need is for people to listen to the show and root for me. That way we can stop the oppressive Beaveman from putting me down.
Right,
there
from
we go.
pushing his obvious agenda that he has. Exactly.
There you go.
All right. Well then, as always, I'm the Beaveman. Adios, mooch fuckos.
Crickets, bitches.